Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Idahoan Show. So I've been reading up a little bit on heat treatment methods lately, particularly the tempering process, which seems to offer some advantages in terms of the material properties it produces. And so I've been thinking about heat treatment, and last time I made a run into town to get supplies, I stopped off at Walmart to see what I could find in the way of tempering ovens. Naturally, I didn't find any industrial tempering ovens at Walmart, and even if I had, they would have been way out of my price range anyway. So I was looking at things like toaster ovens, slow cookers, deep fryers, hot plates. And what I ended up buying was this thing. Now, I'm a little concerned because, they call it the CopperChef as their trade name or whatever, but they're actually selling you an aluminum pan with just a copper-colored enamel on it. They've got their caricature of some, celebrity chef that I've never heard of on the box, and with their, as seen on TV sticker. So it's kind of got all the earmarks of an overpriced, over-advertised gimmick. But looking at the technical specifications, it's got digital temperature control from 100 to 500 degrees. And that was what convinced me to buy it, because everything else that was available only went up to 350, 400. There might have been a couple other hot plates that went up to 450, but that range from 450 to 500 degrees Fahrenheit is actually very useful for forming lower bainite in the tempering process. And so I picked this thing up, and I'm going to do some testing with it to see if it's actually worth anywhere near the $50 that I paid for it, particularly when it comes to heat treating metal. And I figured as long as I was doing that, I would go ahead and videotape it for the benefit of the greater DIY community. Okay, to start with, I'm just curious to see how accurate the temperature control is. So I've got my infrared thermometer, and I've got the fake copper pan that came with this thing. Now, if this was actual polished copper, polished metal has an emissivity that's too low a lot of times to get accurate readings with an infrared thermometer. I don't know that that's going to be a problem for the aluminum pan with the fake copper-colored enamel, but just to be on the safe side, I put a piece of paper in the pan. That'll have a high enough emissivity to give us an accurate reading. And we'll just turn this on and try out a couple of heat settings with the empty pan and see how close we can get. Well, I set it for 150. And we're at 230 and climbing. 240, 250, 280, 420. Well, we learned a couple of things here. For starters, whatever kind of temperature control we have on this digital hot plate, it's not real precise. Based on the technical specifications on the box, when they claimed that it was accurate within 10 degrees, without reference to what you were cooking or what kind of cookware you were using, I was thinking maybe there was like an infrared thermometer built into the heating plate. It has kind of a glass top, so I thought maybe they had found a way to read through that, and they were actually going to monitor the temperature of the bottom of the pot and and regulate the temperature in a closed loop control system. Now I'm thinking it must be just an open loop control system with a lot of assumptions as far as the heat capacity of what you're heating and how fast it's going to dissipate heat and so forth. And so what you're actually getting are just duty cycle ratings, for different, or that correlate to different temperatures for a particular pot. Maybe they filled the pan with water or something. But anyway, so the first thing we learned, don't trust the temperature settings on this. Second thing we learned is that typing paper starts to brown at about 420 degrees. Now, another claim they made was that this hot plate would work with any pot as long as it's magnetic. So here I have an old random pot that is definitely magnetic. Let's see if it heats up. Well, it definitely seems to be heating. I guess while I'm at it, let's put some canola oil and sulfur in the pot and see if we can make some tapping fluid while we're at it. Well, that looks like a good dark sulfurized cutting oil to me. So at least our hot plate works for sulfurizing canola oil. But the real question is, will I be able to use this hot plate for tempering steel? And so, since we've established that the digital temperature control does not work as such, it won't actually regulate the pan temperature to the temperature that you set it to, we need to figure out if these open loop duty cycle ratings or whatever the alleged temperature control actually corresponds to can be used to get consistent temperature control under a certain set of circumstances. So I'm going to use the original pan, and I made an insulating cover that I can put over it to turn it into basically a little oven. And I'm going to put that on the hot plate at different temperatures, wait for the temperature to stabilize, and see if we can get any kind of consistency for potential heat treatment of metal. For testing purposes, I'll just put this little scrap of steel in the pan and we can measure its temperature over time. Okay, so I turned off the camera there because watching me punch a couple buttons to set the temperature and then wait 10 minutes and measure it and wait 10 minutes and measure it and change it and wait 10 minutes and measure it and so on and so forth really isn't that exciting to watch. But after taking a whole bunch of measurements over most of the day, I determined that on average the temperature inside my improvised tempering oven was about 1.8 times the temperature setting that I set the hot plate to, which means that even though the temperature setting is kind of a joke or a little bit misleading, it actually gives me a pretty usable range of temperatures for tempering and potentially ostempering steel. I bought the thing largely because it went up to 500 degrees, whereas most other kitchen appliances only go up to 450 or less. And actually, it looks like I'll be able to get well above 500 for tempering metals when I need to. So, yes, this particular hot plate is kind of an over-advertised gimmick, but I think it's still going to be a pretty useful piece of equipment here in the shop. So you'll likely be seeing it in future episodes, and until then, thanks for watching the Idahoan Show.